The Breath in the Dark. There is a place that locals only mention in whispers, a 3-story building overgrown with vines, looming like a corpse that refuses to decay. It is Mintam General Hospital, abandoned for nearly 20 years. It was once one of the most modern medical facilities in the region, but a mysterious fire in 2005 led to the main building being permanently sealed. No one knows exactly what happened. No clear explanation was ever given. People only say that ever since the fire, in the dead of night, the clatter of metal and faint crying echo from within. Lynn was a final-year journalism student, known for her documentary projects exploring abandoned locations. She decided to choose Mintam Hospital as the subject of her graduation thesis, ignoring the warnings of her friends. "You haven't heard the stories? People have gone missing in there, Lynn," her best friend Mai had snapped. But Lynn only smiled, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. Late one night, she and Dewey, her boyfriend and cameraman, arrived with flashlights, an infrared camera, and an old blueprint of the hospital. They slipped through the rusted fence and entered through the back door on the ground floor, once the hospital cafeteria. The steel door groaned like someone in pain as it opened, and as they stepped inside, an icy chill wrapped around them, as if they had crossed into forbidden territory. "What's that smell?" Dewey winced. "Like burnt coal," Lynn whispered. She flicked on her flashlight. The walls were cracked and stained, the ceiling shedding its plaster in chunks, and on the floor were charred footprints leading deeper into the building. Lynn crouched down to record them. But when they reviewed the footage, nothing showed. The screen was blank. "That's impossible. I just filmed it," she muttered. "Maybe the camera glitched. Let's just finish and get out," Dewey said nervously. But they kept going, through the emergency ward, the operating rooms, and into the ICU. Rusty beds still had dangling IV tubes, some with stained sheets darkened by long-dried fluids. Wind swept through broken windows, causing the curtains to flutter like someone was breathing behind them. Beep, beep, beep. The sound came from the end of the hallway. A heart monitor? But there was no electricity. They moved closer. The screen showed a steady heart rate line. "This can't be happening." Dewey stepped back, raising his camera. But as Lynn reached for the machine, the heartbeat flatlined. A sharp pop filled the room, and then the sound of a heavy metal door slamming shut behind them. They spun around. The door had locked. "Is someone there?" Lynn shouted, her voice echoing down the corridor. No reply. Only footsteps. Not theirs. Approaching. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of a doctor's shoes, someone making rounds in the dead of night. They switched off their flashlights, held their breath, and hid behind a crumbling wall. A figure in a white coat walked past, headless. Dewey screamed. Lynn clamped a hand over his mouth, tears pooling in her eyes. The figure stopped, turning the stump of its neck toward them. And then it walked their way. Lynn grabbed Dewey's hand and they sprinted down the corridor, crashing through a broken glass panel into another room, a delivery room. On the birthing bed were dried stains, rubber gloves scattered everywhere, and in the corner, a cradle. From the cradle came a faint, whimpering cry. Lynn froze, her breath hitching in her throat. The cradle creaked gently, as if being rocked by unseen hands. That soft, almost pathetic cry, like a newborn, filled the stale air, rising and falling with unnatural rhythm. Dewey stepped back instinctively, knocking over a rusted IV pole that clattered to the ground with a loud crash. The crying stopped. Silence, absolute and immediate, swallowed the room like a suffocating blanket. Then, without warning, the cradle jolted. A hand, small, pallid, shriveled, reached up from within. It gripped the edge of the crib. Lynn screamed and turned to run, but the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. Dewey hurled his shoulder into it, again and again, but the metal door didn't budge. Behind them, the cradle rocked violently now, emitting a low guttural gurgle like something trying to breathe through water. Lynn yanked open a supply cabinet and shoved Dewey inside. They crouched, trembling, flashlight off, trying not to breathe. A dragging sound moved across the floor. Something with fingernails or bones scraped the tiles. Something that didn't walk, but pulled itself. And then a voice, soft, female, broken, whispered, "Give it back." The temperature dropped further. Frost crept along the inside of the glass cabinet like fingers of ice. Lynn's hand found Dewey's in the dark. His palm was cold, but shaking. The dragging sound passed, slowly fading away. 10 minutes passed, or maybe more. Finally, Dewey cracked the cabinet open and peered out, empty. He motioned for Lynn to follow and tiptoed toward the door, which now hung ajar like it had never been locked at all. They crept out into the hallway, Sprock haunted by the echo of that voice. "What the hell was that?" Dewey hissed. She said, "Give it back." "What do you think she meant?" Lynn whispered, heart still hammering. They pushed deeper into the hospital, now reaching the psychiatric wing, where the fire had started 20 years ago. The charred remains of furniture still lay in ashen piles. Burn marks climbed the walls like fingers reaching toward the ceiling. In the center of the main therapy room, the floor was blackened but oddly clean, swept of debris. There, drawn in soot or blood, neither of them wanted to know, was a circle with strange symbols. Lynn took a photo, but when she checked the screen, the circle didn't appear in the image. Only the burned floor. She looked back at the real floor. Still there. They didn't speak. They moved on. The hallway ahead branched into two. The left led to the morgue, the right to the pediatric wing. They hesitated. Then, as if making the decision for them, the overhead lights in the left corridor flickered on, one by one. They turned left. As they approached the morgue, Lynn's nose filled with the stench of decay. Not old decay. Fresh. The kind that clung to the back of your throat. A metal tray rolled halfway out of a body storage unit. On it, under a filthy sheet, lay a human-shaped bulge. Lynn stepped forward, hand trembling, and lifted the sheet. Nothing. Just bone fragments. But beside them, a name tag, still clipped to a scorched ID card. She wiped it gently and read the name aloud. Dr. Nguyen Bao Han, head of psychiatry. Suddenly, the lights went out. A shriek tore through the morgue, not from the room, but from inside the walls. Red emergency lights buzzed to life, dim and flickering. The temperature plummeted again. Lynn's breath became visible, vapor clouding in front of her face. The freezer doors began to rattle violently. One by one, they slammed open, empty trays sliding out as if thrown from within. A shadow darted past the doorway. No footsteps, no sound. Then came the banging. From the ceiling above, from behind the walls, below the floor, like hundreds of fists pounding to be let out. Lynn grabbed Dewey's arm and bolted. They didn't stop until they reached the stairwell. As they climbed, the stairwell twisted, longer than it should have been. Steps stretched, echoing endlessly. Behind them, soft tapping sounds kept pace. When they reached the third floor, they found themselves in a corridor that hadn't appeared on the blueprint. No doors, just a single patient bed, sitting alone under a flickering fluorescent light. On the bed, strapped tightly by blackened leather restraints, lay a body, burned, mummified, yet still moving. The torso heaved slightly, and a faint, rasping exhale escaped it. Then the head turned, slowly, and Lynn saw the face, or what remained of it. Skin melted to the bone, lips fused, eyes black and empty. But something inside it stared back. Knew her. "Lynn," it whispered. She fell back in terror. Dewey tried to drag her away, but the lights above exploded, raining glass down on them. The restraints on the bed snapped. The body sat upright. "Give back." They ran. Down a different hall, any hall, their only goal now to escape. But the building shifted. Doors they passed led into the same rooms again and again. Every time they opened a door, delivery room, morgue, therapy chamber, cradle, again. Finally, they stumbled into the hospital chapel, now a ruin. Broken pews, a shattered crucifix, wax melted into grotesque forms. But something felt still here, watching. On the altar lay a box, small, wooden, and old. Lynn approached, her instincts screaming to stop, but her hands moved on their own. She opened the box. Inside was a fetus, preserved, dried like a shriveled fruit. Its eye sockets hollow, its mouth frozen in a silent scream. A tag inside the lid read, "Baby Han, do not disturb," and beneath that a date, May 5th, 2005, the day of the fire. "She tried to save it," Lynn whispered. "The doctor, Bao Han, she tried to save her child." The pieces clicked together. A doctor, desperate, alone, possibly mad, hiding her pregnancy, a failed delivery, a fire to cover the truth, and now the ghost of a mother searching for the child that was taken from her. Lynn turned. The ghost stood behind her. Burned face, hollow eyes, outstretched hands. "Give it back!" Tears streamed down Lynn's face as she picked up the remains and held them out. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know. I didn't mean." The ghost reached forward, took the box, cradled it, and for the first time, the building went silent. Dewey and Lynn blinked. The room was lit. Sunlight, they turned toward the entrance. No longer barred. The vines outside shifted gently in the wind. They walked out, not speaking, not breathing. They didn't stop walking until the hospital was a speck in the distance. Lynn never published her footage. In fact, the files were corrupted beyond repair. She quit journalism a week later. Dewey left the country, said he couldn't sleep anymore, not without seeing her face. And the hospital? It still stands. Still cold. Still watching. Sometimes at night, people passing by swear they hear a woman's voice, soft, broken, singing a lullaby, or the cry of a newborn child echoing through the empty halls, waiting for its mother.